Hey everyone, and welcome. In this explainer, we are going to walk through the Beverage Sales Analysis DAX assignment. We're going to break it all down step by step and turn you into a DAX Pro by the time we're done. So I want you to think of this less like a homework assignment and more like a mission. Seriously, by the end of this, you're going to have 8 essential DAX formulas under your belt and a really powerful sales report to show for it. So let's get started. So what's our objective? Well, it's pretty straightforward, but also incredibly powerful. We're going to take a whole bunch of raw sales data and use DAX, which, stands for Data Analysis Expressions, to pull out some really important insights about how the business is doing.
Okay, here's a quick peek at the data we'll be playing with. It's from a distribution company, so you can see we've got info on retailers, different regions, all the brands, and of course, the numbers that matter most, revenue and expenses. This is basically our raw material for the entire mission.
First things first, we're starting with part 1, building out our base measures. Think of these as the foundation. They're simple aggregations, but literally everything else we do is going to be built on top of them. So, step 1, we have to answer the most fundamental question in any sales analysis, right? What is our total revenue?
And to get that number, we're going to use the sum function. It's one of the simplest functions in DAX, but it's also one of the most important. This little formula just tells Power BI to go to the data table, find that revenue column, and just add up every single number it finds there. Simple as that.
Now, why does this matter so much? Well, this isn't just some random formula. This number is the main pulse, the core indicator of your company's financial health. Almost every other metric we're going to calculate today will somehow tie back to this one big number. And what's cool is we can use that same basic idea to answer totally different questions. So for step 2, we'll use sum again, but this time on the units sold column to see our total volume. Then for step 3, we'll switch it up and use the average function to figure out the average price per unit. See? 2 simple functions, but they give us 2 very different, very vital ways of looking at the business. Awesome, we've got our totals locked in. Now for part 2. We're going to move beyond just adding and averaging and start to analyze the different categories inside our data. And the first thing we want to know is how many different brands are we actually selling here? This isn't a sum, right? It's a count of our product variety. Now for this, we need a special tool, Distinct Count. This is a perfect example of why DAX is so powerful. It doesn't just count every single row. No, it's smarter than that. It scans that beverage brand column and only counts the unique names. This gives us a really clear picture of how diverse our product portfolio is. Okay, part 3. Now we are about to unlock what is probably the single most important function in all of DAX, calculate. This thing is like a superpower. It lets you apply filters to your data so you can ask these incredibly specific targeted questions. So our first filtered question is going to be this. Out of all that total revenue we found earlier, how much of it came from just one brand? Let's just use Sprite as our example. So here's how calculate works. First, you give it a measure you've already created, in our case, total revenue. Then, for the second part, you give it a filter, a rule. In plain English, we're basically telling Power BI, hey, I want you to calculate the revenue, but only for the rows where the beverage brand is Sprite. Pretty cool, right? But what if you want to look at more than one brand at a time? Let's say we want to see the combined revenue for both Sprite and Fanta. How would we do that? Well, to do that, we just expand our filter logic a little bit. You see those 2 vertical bars, that double pipe symbol? That's just DAX for OR. So the formula now says, calculate the total revenue for rows where the brand is Sprite or the brand is Fanta. This is how you start to build really dynamic and flexible analyses. All right, it's time for part 4, where we really level up our DAX skills. We're going to introduce variables using var and return. I'm telling you, this is a total game changer for writing formulas that are cleaner, way more efficient, and just a whole lot easier to read and understand. Okay, so our next big task is to calculate profit. Now, the logic for that is simple, right? It's just revenue minus expenses, but we're going to write it in a way that's much clearer than just jamming 2 sum functions together. Let's just break this structure down. First, we use var to declare a variable. Think of it like a temporary storage box. We'll call it total expense, and we'll put the sum of all our expenses in it. Then the return part does the final math. It just takes our total revenue measure and subtracts that variable we just created. It makes the whole formula so much more readable.
And this whole variable structure is absolutely perfect for more complex formulas, like profit margin. So here, we define two variables, one for our profit, one for our revenue, but then, look closely, we use the divide function. This is so much safer than just using a simple slash, because it automatically handles any divide by zero problems. If that happens, it just returns a 0 instead of a big, ugly error, which keeps your final report clean and robust.
You have done all the hard work creating the measures, so for our final task, we get to bring it all together. It is time to visualize your victory and actually present what you found in a report. So, to complete your mission, you're going to create a matrix visual in Power BI. It's simple. You'll drag region and beverage brand over to the rows. Then you'll take your 3 key measures, total revenue, total profit, and that profit margin, and drag them into the values. And for the final touch, add a slicer for the date. That way you can see how all these numbers change over time. This is really where your analysis starts to become an interactive story. And that's it. Mission complete. You've built the measures, you've built the visualization, but remember, the final step is always the most important one. Now that you've analyzed all this data, what's the story you're going to tell with it? Which regions are the most profitable? Are there any brands that are underperforming? That's where the real value and the real fun begins.